welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe from the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, today, as always, we're on 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 WBFH, The Biff in Bloomfield Hills. Our TV stations, Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield and Birmingham Area Municipal Access in Birmingham, Bigham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the Village of Franklin, are both on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. We're also online, civiccentertv.com, as well as on facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm. And as always, joining me here in the studio is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler,
yes.
Ever have those mornings where you want a reset button?
Yes. Many mornings I have that reset button need, Ronnie.
I slept through the eclipse this morning.
Oh, yeah, so did I. I was disappointed. I had been awakened by my cats at like 4 o'clock in the morning, just meowing nonstop. So I went in there, gave them a little bit of food, pet them, politely told them to can it, and then went back to bed and slept through. Yeah, and then slept through. No pun intended, of course, because I gave them wet food. But and then went back to bed. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get up and see this eclipse, and then go about my day. And I missed it. I can't believe it. I missed it.
No. Then we have a baby deer along the trail behind our house.
Yes,
a fawn, but it's a baby deer. And we saw it briefly yesterday. And, as a reminder to everyone out there, do not worry, the mama will come back. That's one good thing about this show, because we talk to the DNR so many times, you learn things. So do not worry. The mama's going to come back. But I was like, let me get Trixie Dixie up, take her out for her little walk this morning. Maybe we'll see the baby deer, because usually in the morning time is when they're so active, all the deer around our house. And they've been extremely active, because now that they've eaten all my hostas, they moved over to some of my other bushes. So I'm not happy. But no baby deer, no eclipse.
Just missed it all today.
I did.
Wow.
I did. My husband had to be at work at 8:30, so it kind of threw the whole schedule out. The dog's moping around the house, trying to get her out.
And she's probably disappointed that she missed the eclipse also. Aren't we all?
It is funny how you, when you get a pet, how the difference when you start to, they get in sync with your routine. So usually she'll get up with me early in the morning, and then she runs back upstairs to bed until Woody gets out, which, he'll lay there till 10:30 sometimes. Sure. I'm always like, what do you do? Like, watch old Westerns and stuff in the morning. I just don't get it. Like, when I wake up, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah,
start today.
Right.
Go for a run. Missed my run this morning.
Oh, no. Oh.
It's not really a run, by the way. It's like a run walk.
It's you got to ease your ankle back into it, Ronnie. You can't just go out there and be like, all right, fine, let me just re-break this thing. No.
And of course, the bombshell news about the University of Michigan.
Yes. Yeah.
Bo Schemblecker's son is going to be coming out today, holding a press conference around 1 o'clock to say that he too was abused, and his father knew and did nothing.
Yeah, and much like unfortunate situations we've seen in many other major universities over the past year, including Michigan State over in East Lansing. Penn State was also involved in this several years ago, notably, and we're seeing this again here at the University of Michigan. Really unfortunate that this kind of situation was allowed to go on for so long, and so many people that were in positions of power allegedly may not have spoken up about it, or at least not been forthright about it in a timely manner.
It makes you wonder. So far, there have been, over 800 people who have come forward to say they were victims of this doctor at the University of Michigan. And, it really feels like deja vu with the Larry Nassar case out of Michigan State University. And, the whole state and these victims are just still recovering from that and that lengthy trial. And we, there's still a lot going on behind the scenes with that case as well, with the former president of Michigan State University. But it makes you wonder, what is this going to do to Bo's legacy?
That's something that is in the questions of a lot of people, particularly in the sports community, because Bo Schembechler is such a huge figure in the history of Michigan sports, particularly Michigan football, but really across the board. But it's very similar, and sadly so similar. It just seems to the Larry Nassar situation at Michigan State, where there was so much negligence, gross negligence across the board, whether it be within the medical departments, whether it be within the gymnastics team, or even as high up as the president of the university, Leone K. Simon, who on notable occasions kind of swept the issue under the rug instead of taking it very seriously when it is a student safety and student health issue that should be paramount, as the university in that case more than on one occasion had said was paramount, and clearly didn't practice that. It's a similar thing that seems to be what was practiced at Michigan State and has been practiced at so many other universities that have just been careless in protecting their students.
Well, on top of that as well, it's going to be interesting to see if Jim Harbaugh kind of changes his statements surrounding this. He has been defending Bo throughout this time when some of the reporters have been asking questions. His response was less than empathetic, let's just put it that way, to some of these victims, and it's going to be interesting to see if he has a little bit of fallback on this as well after this press conference today.
Yeah, that'll be. There's going to be a lot of eyes on him after his comments defending Bo and defending his administration there when he was the head coach of Michigan football, especially after his son comes out today and may drop some serious information that would be very much contrary to what Jim Harbaugh and others who have been defending Bo Schembechler in this situation have said in the past. And so hopefully if that is the case and he does make comment on that, hopefully it is very much sympathetic to the victims and not so much to those that may have been perpetrators.
Obviously there are buildings named after Bo. Does that go away?
I think so. Yeah, if he is found to be negligent in this situation and as careless as it allegedly seems he may have been, from what we know so far about what his son may say at his 1 o'clock press conference today, I think statues come down, names come off buildings, and the university has to do a lot of retooling there to salvage the institutions in their sports departments.
I think U of M is going to play this a little bit differently than what we saw come out of Michigan State University with the Larry Nassar case, in that they are already in mediation with some of these victims as well, instead of going for some type of a trial situation, which it really is hard here too, because the people involved have already passed away.
Right.
But you start digging, you're going to find that a lot of people connected with that university knew too much and did nothing.
It takes a lot to keep something like this silent. When you have that many victims, when you have that many people that are involved in between getting to the doctor and those that are in between setting up appointments or setting up situations that would lead somebody to be going to that doctor and getting, for lack of better terms in this situation, treated. And I think what we're seeing that's positive so far from the University of Michigan is, as you said, they're taking a much different route, whereas Michigan State University and their administration, probably to some extent because President Leone K. Simon, who was the president of the university at the time, was so negligent and was so frankly careless about it and trying to sweep it under the rug, was very much defensive about it, instead of saying, our duty is to the students, our duty is to these alumni and to these patients of this doctor through our university that may have been victimized severely by this doctor over a period of years. We need to do our best to support them and mediate the situation rather than be defensive and try to protect ourselves when we may very well be severely at fault.
And we should point out, it's been a while since I dug into Luana's her severance package, but she walked away with a nice paycheck. And I believe so far no criminal charges have come against her. They're still digging into it. The investigation is ongoing, but I believe she even gets to use the resources from the university to help defend her, which at the end of the day is still tuition money and tax dollars.
Yeah, kind of just ended up with a very light slap on the wrist, if anything, so far. did Lou Anna K. Simon, the former president of Michigan State University, which is frankly shameful.
It really is. It just makes you wonder, how is this being allowed to continue after all this time? I mean, did we not learn our lessons with Penn State? I mean, that's been how many years ago now?
Oh, at least
the
a
Catholic
decade.
Church.
Right.
Come on. Oh, you feel for it. But I believe there are some former football players that are going to be at the press conference as well today.
Okay.
And they're going to say that they also told Bo about the assault that went on. And again, his response is said to have been to these students, including his son, was toughen up.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, so with that, though, it's so hard to believe. It really is. And I'm not even a Michigan fan. So, I'm like, Oakland County is making a big push right now to try to hit that 70% vaccination rate. And they're relying on some student ambassadors to help them get there. Oakland County is one of the pace setters in the state for getting shots into arms. More than 1.7 million county residents have had at least the first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. It seems to be working because Oakland County's 7-day COVID case average rate now is about 32 cases per day. And they're saying that we need about 57,000 residents to get their vaccine in just under 4 weeks. That was announced yesterday at a press conference promoting the new 1-by-1 vaccine campaign that is being pushed by the Oakland County Health Department. The promotion features Oakland County residents who have been vaccinated, and they are hopefully compelling others to do the same. And as part of the campaign launch, the county introduced 7 students, 5 of them from Troy High School, that will serve as vaccine ambassadors. All 7 were vaccinated at the press conference yesterday. Let's just remind people, though, if you are going to try to convince someone to get the vaccine, be nice about it.
Right.
Because sometimes these conversations get a little heated because people are very passionate on each side of this issue. So if you're going to have the conversation, be nice about it and let the individual make up their mind for themselves.
Yeah, a lot of the hesitancy is that people just have not been able to do their own research or have not been able to find information that eases some of their concerns, and maybe don't have a primary care doctor that they can speak to, or have a primary care doctor at all that they regularly see, or another medical expert that they can consult with to get the information that they need. So when we are having these conversations about the vaccine with people that may not have been vaccinated yet or may be hesitant, it's more about leading them to the information that they need to be able to make the best informed decision, rather than condescending them and being aggressive and judgmental because they're having some hesitancies, when this is something that is a personal medical choice for each person.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they should have come up with a different campaign than this one.
Yeah, maybe.
Nearly half of Michigan counties have no new virus cases. Nearly half of the Michigan counties had no new cases or deaths from the coronavirus Wednesday, and just 7 counties and Detroit had new case counts in the double digits. It is a sign of the waning impact of the virus, so we at least hope. State Health Department announced 257 new cases statewide and 7 deaths, with 37 of the state's 83 counties having no new numbers. So of the 8 areas with the new cases in low double digits, they are in Southeast and West Michigan. Really no surprise where the population is. 38 cases and 2 deaths in Wayne County, 26 new cases here in Oakland County, and 26 cases, 1 death in Macomb County, 18 cases, 2 deaths in the city of Detroit, which keep in mind Detroit is counted separately than Wayne County. It's really a weird setup there. So Detroit has its own health department where all the numbers come through them. But in all, the state has experienced, over 891,000 cases since March 2020 and about 19,439 deaths since the start of the pandemic. So as we continue to emerge out of the pandemic, we should also remind, we've lost a lot of people to this virus.
Right. The numbers are looking a lot less severe nowadays than they have in even the recent past, just a month or so ago here in the state of Michigan. But we still have lost a lot over the period of this last 15 months that we've known about COVID-19 and have been in this pandemic since the onset. That being said, there is a lot of positive news in this, with the case numbers continuing to be very low, and a number of counties, half of the counties in the state of Michigan, according to this article, that have not experienced a new case recently.
Well, I know one of the big pushes right now has to do with trying to get some of the teenagers vaccinated, but there was a new report I saw this morning as I was coming in about some of the health complications with teenagers and the Pfizer vaccine and issues around their heart. But again, it's being continued to be studied. But headlines like that don't help, soothe the nerves of so many parents when it comes to trying to get their teenagers vaccinated.
Yeah, it's one of many reasons why some people have continued to be so hesitant, is because they do want to see what complications may arise, even if they are very rare, just so that they can be aware of what might be experienced. Because while it's unlikely in most scenarios from the numbers that we currently have and the information that we currently have that these side effects may happen, they are still possible, and people want to at least have some awareness so that they can do their due diligence should this sort of situation arise where they fall victim to those side effects and can get treated as soon as possible.
Hey, but another sign we are getting back to normal, the Grand Prix returns this weekend in the Motor City. Have you ever been?
I have not been to the Grand Prix, no. I've been down there around the same time as the Grand Prix, but haven't been to the actual event.
Oh, I've had to cover it so many times. It's loud.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And always interesting trying to get on and off the island. Can be a bit of a challenge. So the Detroit Grand Prix returns this weekend after taking 2020 off due to the pandemic. Some Detroiters, though, are questioning whether it's too soon for such a large gathering. So the June 1st Michigan Department of Health and Human Services order allows for unlimited attendance for outdoor events like the Grand Prix, which the IndyCar Series has been holding on Belle Isle since 2007. Has it been that long? I remember when it returned. But race officials plan to only have about 30 to 50% of the capacity of past years when the Grand Prix presented by Lear runs Friday to Sunday on Belle Isle. But one county commissioner is saying it's concerning that they're opening it up so soon after the order is being lifted, especially in the city of Detroit, because so many people in Detroit have yet to be vaccinated. I was surprised by these numbers. Only about 36% of the city's adults 16 years and older have received at least one of the COVID-19 vaccines. So the county commissioner is saying, maybe this is a little bit too soon. But the Grand Prix says, they're okay with it, but they're still not going to have near the crowds which they once had, which could easily reach well over 100,000 there on the island. And, we have to remember it's still an outdoor event.
Yeah, it's an outdoor event. It's going to be much reduced capacity from normal, and even though they have the ability to have it be at full capacity, should they want to do that, they're continuing to have reduced capacity. And I would think that's mostly due to logistics, because for so much of the planning stages of this major yearly event, they didn't know what the COVID-19 situation was going to be, and making a flip from it being a 30 to 50% capacity event versus normal years to being a fully normal event would be very chaotic last minute, especially when you're still trying to be mindful of the public health situation that we're under, because we're not at herd immunity yet with COVID-19.
And we should say, how much does this bring into the area? I forget the numbers, but events like this, they bring in so much revenue into the city of Detroit when it comes to trying to get the budget back up and running and get the economy running again. An event like this may be what the city needs, but like they said, still only about 50% of the capacity, which is probably a good thing when it comes to Belle Isle. They're probably seeing those crowds on Belle Isle Anyway, I get the alerts from Michigan State Police, and they've been closing down Belle Isle over the past few weekends because they've reached capacity limits. So it's already crowded over there.
Yeah, it's already very crowded. I've seen some of those updates, too, on other news outlets over the weekend when I'll just pull them up to read the news at the end of the day. And they said, Belle Isle got closed at some point today because they reached capacity. So, if you're going 30 to 50%, you're still keeping it relatively low on there, especially with all the other traffic that's going to be in place because of the event itself.
Tyler, if you haven't ever gone before, this might actually be a good weekend if it's only going to be about 30 to 50% of the capacity, because it can get so crowded over on the island because they have so much going on. It's not just the race itself. They have like a kid-friendly zone for parents to bring their kids as well, and of course, you can get food and all of that, but it is very loud. Bring earplugs.
Yeah, it's a racing event. There are a lot of very loud, very powerful motor vehicles that will be roaming around the streets of Belle Isle throughout this event, and then you have the race where they're going at full capacity. So yes, very loud event. Should be expected.
As a reminder, you can always get the latest headlines. Just go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus. That's where you'll find the latest headlines as well as direct links to resources at the top of the page. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. I was about to say the Friday edition, but it's only Thursday.
Oh, no.
When we come back, though, we do have a great show ahead for you here on the Megacast. We'll be talking with St. Joseph Mercy Health System coming up next about their farming and the hospital. What do they have to do with one another? And then also we'll be speaking with the Impact100 Metro Detroit. This is a great organization doing some really cool things. I'd never heard of it before, so I'm excited to talk to them. That's all coming up next here in the 10 o'clock hour.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. We always appreciate you tuning in. We really do think about a hospital as a place to go to when we are sick, a place for us to go, and hopefully the doctors give us the answers we need to get us healthy and back on track again. But what about going to the hospital before you're sick so that you don't get sick? Talk a little bit more. Let's bring in Amanda Sweetman. She's the regional director of the Farming and Healthy Lifestyles over at the St. Joseph Mercy Health System. Amanda, great to have you with us. How are you?
Great. How are you today?
Great. I don't think about going to the hospital to go to the farm.
Well, we're here to change that. So St. Joseph Mercy Oakland has a brand new hospital-based farm up here in Pontiac, and we already have a hospital-based farm at our hospital in Ann Arbor. We're changing the message.
I know, and I love this program because I drive by that area quite often and noticed it. I was like, what is going on there? I didn't know it was connected with the hospital, but how did this come about? What is the conversation to say, hey, let's put a farm at the hospital?
That is such a good question. So it started 11 years ago at our Ann Arbor campus, which is one of the largest healthcare campuses in the country. It's 365 acres. Used to be several different family farms. And there was this feeling of, gosh, we're really good at caring for people if they break their arm or have a heart attack, but we're seeing some patients over and over again. And we're really getting this sense that there's other things going on. It's those daily small choices that we all make where, maybe we know we should eat healthier, we should exercise more, but it's hard because there can be fear, there can be lack of knowledge. And so we started the farm as a way to join people on their path to better health, make it a can and a want instead of a should. And really our mission these days is to grow a healthy community by empowering people through food, education, and relationships.
So for so many people that didn't grow up on a farm, they must look at this like, what do I do? You mean it doesn't come out of a store? I can actually grow a tomato?
Yeah. I think that's one of the best parts of my job, honestly, is the education piece. I'm lucky today. I'm in the hospital and I'm in my office, so I don't have to have my mask on, but I was literally out on the farm this morning in Pontiac pruning tomatoes, and staff was walking by and we had radishes ready. So we just pulled them out of the ground and handed them to people as they were headed home. And so we do education on how do I prune a tomato, right? A lot of people might not know how to do that, or when are my radishes ready, or any of those things. So it can be so simple and so good for you just because you're eating more healthy food, but also because you're gardening, which we've seen the research that it's good for us. It helps us self-soothe. It helps us connect to the earth and to ourselves. So it's really fun.
On top of that as well, I think one thing coming out of the pandemic, we have learned because of COVID-19, food is medicine. It nourishes our bodies, and it's so important what we're putting into our bodies. And do you think the pandemic has kind of helped increase that awareness and that interest in people wanting to get back and maybe, if not growing their own food, at least being more aware of what they're putting into their bodies?
I think that's definitely true. I remember last spring when things felt very different from now, right? When shelves were feeling empty and there were some questions just about where does our food come from? And it caused us all to look at the food system. And so I think there's two things going on. One, I think people are very much involved in their health right now. We're thinking about it a lot. And so thinking about what you eat and how you eat is very important. And I think too, I noticed a big uptake in interest in local farms and local agriculture, because we want to make sure that we have a just and robust food system for our communities to rely on.
Amanda Sweetman with us here on the Megacast. She's the Regional Director of Farming and Healthy Lifestyles over at St. Joseph Mercy Health System. And with this new farm over in Pontiac, how does it work? Who really reaps the benefits of all that great food?
So we've got a lot of different programs that we're launching. The food, which is the big piece of it, that will go out to our patients. It will go out to our providers. We are starting what we're calling a produce to patients program, where those radishes that we're harvesting this morning, we'll take them in and we'll take them to our clinics. So our women's and children's clinic, our dental clinic, our low-cost care clinics. And we'll make sure that those are out as a way for providers to engage with their patients to say, you know what, food really is medicine. Maybe you just got diagnosed with diabetes and we're going to help you manage that through medication, but also lifestyle. So it's a great tool. It's a great way to get food to your community. We also think here at St. Joe's about how to be good community partners. Our mission is to be a transforming, healing presence in our community and come alongside people. And one of the things we know about this area of Pontiac is that it's what we would call a food desert, or I actually love the term food swamp. There's a McDonald's on the corner, but there's no grocery store nearby where you can get healthy food. So we're increasing fresh food access to our community as well. So we're starting our Produce to Patients program. we're also starting something called our Farm Share. And this is a collaborative program where we're actually working with 3 different farms and our food, and we'll bring that all together, pack it up into a box, and then it's like a veggie subscription service for local food. You can sign up for a membership and get a weekly box, so every week, July through November, or you can get buy a half share and you get it every other week, and you pick it up from the farm on Thursdays. We also, about a quarter of our memberships are going out to food insecure patients who are in our community. So you can actually get this for free. So there's a way to sign up on our website. You go to stjoesfarm.org and look for, in the programs area, the St. Joe's Oakland Farm Share. And you can sign up, and if you can afford it, you can pay for it. And if you can't, and you have some financial need, you can apply to be a part of our Farm Share Assistance Program.
Amanda, this is an amazing program, and it is so needed because, for years, everyone has focused on how Detroit didn't have grocery stores. And, we should remind people, there are so many liquor stores on the corners, but that's where people were buying their food. Because there's not a grocery store nearby, and if you don't have a car, you have to ride a bike, you have to walk. Where are you going? You're going to the local corner store, which is usually a liquor store with a lot of times expired food. So to have something like this in our backyard is, I think, really going to help change the conversation and be a game changer for so many families, because they can have that conversation with their kids to say, hey, this is fresh, and here's how we use it.
You're exactly right. And, we're also adding programming. You can come and volunteer at the farm. So if you want to get some hands-on experience, learn how to prune tomatoes or grow a perennial flower garden, or just come out and be outside, come please volunteer with us. We'll also have community programs. We're feeling it out with COVID right now, but next year we'll put both feet in and get really into our education and hope to offer classes and places where people can. It's that teach a person to fish idea, right? So if I can teach you how to garden, or if I can teach you how to eat some new types of fruits and vegetables that are enjoyable and less expensive and accessible, then we've set you up for tools for life. And that's where I think the leadership at St. Joe's has such a wonderful job investing in these programs, that they truly believe that food is medicine and that this is how we transform our communities. Shannon Strybeck, our president, always says to me that the farm is the living embodiment of the love and connection we feel with our community, and that this is something that we want to bring forth and make available to people.
This is so great, and it's so nice to have right here in our neighborhood as well. And Amanda, how does it work? Like, who runs the farm? Because, like right now, it's the mugging machine is on. And if you're not watering things a couple times a day, it's going to be dead before you know it.
You got it. So we're so fortunate to have hired a farm manager for the St. Joe's Oakland Farm, Caitlin Smoger. She's actually out harvesting right now. So she and I work on it together, but we rely a lot on volunteers. We're also hiring an intern to help her out this summer, and it's an all hands on deck kind of thing right now.
But that's the fun thing as well. How do you figure out what you're going to plant when?
So we have a crop plan, and that's something that I've been fortunate to learn through some experience, and Caitlin's worked in other farms as well. And so we go through and we think about what we have space-wise, what we want to have as a product at the end of it. And because we have such a small space, so it's, the farm is actually right next to the hospital. You walk through it to get to the medical office building. So it's a small space, so we're being really efficient about it. So we're interplanting. So my tomatoes, which will be very tall, have radishes on the side. My kale, which will grow all season, I'm growing carrots underneath. And so thinking about what plants grow well together, what likes cool weather. So kale and radishes like to be cool, tomatoes and peppers and eggplants like to be hot. And so we're timing it for the seasons.
And with that, how do you anticipate? So this is the first year, it's just kind of getting off the ground, but I know, wasn't there another farm in the Ann Arbor area as well?
Yeah, so I expect there to be a lot of growth. So the farm in Ann Arbor is 11 years old. We have hoop houses, which are like unheated greenhouses where we grow in the soil. So we'll install one of those at St. Joe's Pontiac. so that we can grow year round. So we'll be able to have salad greens and spinach in the winter. We'll be able to have a lot more summer crops in the summer when we install that. We're going to build an outdoor pavilion. So we'll have a safe, appealing outdoor space that, say you're, waiting for an appointment. How about having an outdoor waiting room? Or, maybe you're a nurse who's just had a really hard shift, right? Healthcare is hard in any time, and it's particularly hard right now. Come outside, have a chance to take a deep breath and, recenter yourself. Other things we're planning on installing at the farm, we're going to have a cut flower garden where, we'll have like cutting hours, like office hours, where you can come and cut a bouquet to take to a colleague or maybe to an ailing parent. So we're trying to bring those moments of joy to our hospital and to our neighbors and our community.
This is really taking healthcare and thinking outside of the box and integrating the entire person, not just one side of the science and the medicine.
That's exactly right. And I think one of the things that I think is very fortunate is that the doctor's entrance actually runs through the farm. So every day when they come and when they leave, they are seeing the farm, learning from us, and thinking it helps us make those connections that are really already happening in St. Joe's, but we're providing tools and extra education. Because part of the reason I'm invested in this health system is that we really truly believe from the bottom to the top that it's the whole person that matters. And how do we invest in you as a whole person? Some of that is the healthcare you receive. Some of that is the food you eat. Some of that is the community connections we make. Because I've been so impressed by the city of Pontiac and the number of urban farms and gardens, the number of organizations who are working to bring hope and joy and a positive future to the community.
It really is starting and teaching the kids when they're young. My dad, they grew up on farms and, they've been farming all of their lives. But then, of course, once we all came along, we didn't farm, but we would go to my grandfather's house and they always had, pigs and horses, and you learn about like your eggs. There's nothing more satisfying than going out and getting an egg, from the chicken. It is the coolest experience when you're a kid. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think, we have a very robust youth education program in our Blue Farm. It's a larger space. I think we will look to have some kind of youth education. We'll certainly look to have education. It's all about experiential, right? How do you get their hands in the dirt? How do you make curiosity cool again, right? I see kindergartners and everything is awesome, can't keep their hands out of the dirt. They'll try that vegetable if you get excited about it too. But fifth grade is like, oh no, I'm too cool for this. Like I don't want to be here. Like it smells weird. Like no, thank you. And to me, that's a learned behavior. So let's provide alternate role models and stories. And this is true for adults too. I think it's never too late to make a change. And the good thing about this is that it's delicious. It doesn't have to be a should. It should be a want.
And it really is, along with that, teaching people to cook what is in season. I will say, I was at the grocery store the other day. I forget what it was. And I was like, what are these things? I'd never seen them before. And it's like a type of berry that's out, like in Miami and Florida. Because my friend down there is like, oh, we have them on trees everywhere. They're expensive up there. When they're in your backyard, you grow up with them. Sure. But explore the new foods and don't be afraid to taste new things and do it when you're young.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I wish everybody had the childhood you had of like the experience of having a fresh egg and being outside and, getting to experience that agricultural heritage that so many of us have. But there's lots of ways that we can try to bring that to the city environment too.
Well, Amanda, I will say we also made mud pies. All the time. You were kids. Of course we had mud pies, and then you'd have mud pie fights. So,
Perfect. Good for your microbiome.
There's always a learning lesson in there, right? Exactly. Amanda Sweetman with us here on the Megacast. She's the Regional Director of Farming and Healthy Lifestyles over at St. Joseph Mercy Health Systems. And again, we're talking about the new farm that they just are planning and getting going over there on the Pontiac campus. And with that, Amanda, how can people find out more about the program?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. You can go to our website, stjoesfarm.org. There's information about the Oakland farm on there as well as Ann Arbor. You can email us at oaklandfarmshare@stjoeshealth.org. Or you can call us at 734-712-4767. There's lots of different ways to get involved in volunteering. You can go to the St. Joe's Hospital website for that or send us a note. Check us out on social media. We often put up fun videos. I just recorded Caitlin on a lesson on how to prune tomatoes. So there's lots of fun stuff that's up on Facebook, St. Joe's Farm, and Instagram, The Farm in St. Joe's.
See, this is so great to have you on. I think I'm actually going to go try to volunteer with you guys because I know nothing. I told my husband I wanted a raised garden this year. I have to figure out how to keep the deer away first. My soap on the rope is not working this year like it did last year. She's like, no, it's not going to.
Fencing. I don't know what else to tell you.
But fencing doesn't look pretty.
A dog?
No, oh, well, we have a big dog.
Well.
She just looks at them, though. She thinks they're like another dog to play with. She's like, oh, hi, I'm Trixie. Anyway, well, Amanda, it's been great having you. We appreciate your time, and maybe I'll see you over at the farm one day.
Thank you. We'd love to have you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being with us. Again, check them out, St. Joseph Mercy Health System. Again, the farm is right there in Pontiac at the corner of Woodward and South by the M1 concourse. So great to have them with us. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and another great conversation coming up. We'll talk to the president of Impact100 Metro Detroit. Another great program. This is one of the cool things about this show. I learned so much each and every day. That's next here on the Megacast.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for being with us here on the Megacast. Tyler, I'm serious. I'm going over there to volunteer because I know nothing about how to prune a tomato. I know nothing. A radish, too. I'm like, what do you make with a radish other than putting it in maybe a salad?
Yeah. That's all I really know about the uses of a radish, but they know a lot more. So yeah, you can learn a lot about that, learn about the proper way to farm some of these crops for your own garden, and help the community out as well.
Huh. Hey, with that, excited to bring in our next guest. One thing I think might be one of the positive things to come out of COVID-19 is we saw so many neighbors helping neighbors. And I feel like we get away from that because we get so busy in our own lives that we forget to stop to help one another. But in a moment of crisis, people are really good about bringing each other together. And we had to find different ways to connect with one another since we couldn't do it the old-fashioned way of running into someone at, in line at Starbucks or this, that, and the other. But there's an organization that has been dedicated to helping the community, and they are doing it in such a unique way. Kerry Walsh joins us now on the Megacast. She's the president of Impact100 Metro Detroit. Kerry, thanks for being with us.
Honey, it's nice to see you.
How have I not heard of this organization before? Because as soon as I was reading your history, and you've been around since 2015, so it's not brand new, I was like, this is genius. Tell us more about it.
I agree. So Impact100 Metro Detroit has been around for 7 years. And the concept is it's women's collective giving, which is women coming together, pooling their financial resources to provide grants to nonprofits in the community. For Impact100 Metro Detroit, our membership model is where you work, live, and play. So we are Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. And we have we just awarded our grants from our 2021 grant cycle 2 weeks ago. And that got us to $860,000 in the community since we've started. So we're incredibly proud of the work that we've done, of the organizations that we've supported, and even in the women that are involved in Impact100. And in some ways, we're not a secret. We're growing rapidly, and we're so appreciative of opportunities like this to tell more people about our brand. But we grow typically through like women's and relationships. So I joined because I met someone at a work event and she mentioned it to me, and I was like you, intrigued by the concept. Many of our members, you meet someone who's involved and then you become involved yourself. And so it's a little bit of hand-to-hand combat, word of mouth, and we're really trying to grow what we're doing and encourage people to find us and become more involved.
This is really such a great concept. Here I was, some of my neighbors, a bunch of us over here in the Sylvan, Waterford area, we have like a chick group where it's like, hey, this person needs, PR. Okay, do you know someone? Hey, this person needs someone in this arena. Who do you know? But of course, our centers around cocktails, but trying to lift one another up as well. But this is really on such a large scale. But what I like about it is the donation that people are making isn't so out of the realm that some people feel excluded. So how does that side of this work?
Yeah, so the concept is one woman at $1,000, and ours it's $1,100 a year, and then that $1,000 is pooled with other women to come together to provide the grants. And we believe in high impact grants in increments of $100,000. So with every 100 members, we're able to provide a grant for $100,000. Last year, we were at $252,000 to the community, so 252 members. And the idea of collective giving isn't new. It's been around for probably 20, 25 years. I am learning. I've been a member for 3 years, and I have been, just even in the past 3 or 4 months, my eyes have been opened to the power of collective giving in many, many different ways. Even here in Southeast Michigan, there is an Impact100 Oakland. There's also an Impact100 Macomb. And we all were loosely affiliated, but completely separate organizations. And while Metro Detroit supports nonprofits that are operating in Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb, those other groups are more focused specifically on their counties. But the idea of $1,000 it's a stop and think gift, and we know that. And for many of our women, for a majority of our members, it's the largest contribution they've made to a single nonprofit. And that's somewhat intentional because it's a way to feel invested. When you become a member, you get a vote. So it's one woman, one vote, which is also really interesting because it allows you an opportunity to start to feel more invested and aware of what's happening in the community in a way that you mentioned your women that get together. You're gonna know what one another knows, and your awareness might not necessarily be the same as with Impact100, where we receive many, many, many applications from nonprofits every year, and our women have the opportunity, if they wish, to be part of the grant review process and read these grants where you understand the unmet needs in our community, and as importantly, you see who's trying to solve the problems and how your contribution, my $1,000, is absolutely life-changing to these organizations is, I can't describe, we call it the joy of collective giving, which sounds maybe a little bit, esoteric, but when we hand that big check that says $100,000, I feel like I personally gave $100,000, even though it was just my $1,000. And so it really, we're empowering women to lean into their philanthropic power so that we're giving of our finances in addition to our time and our talents, where women tend to be more gravitated towards our time and our talents, just more naturally. And that's a piece that we're really trying to explore and grow.
So with that, Kelly, as someone who has covered Detroit for years, the need is so great. I always said I wish I would win the lotto just so I could be the fairy godmother and go around with my magic wand and help them support so many of these amazing causes. And a lot of them are just small nonprofits too that are neighborhood based, but others are larger as well. With the need so great, how do you pick and choose who gets the grants and who doesn't?
So it's our members, and that's also, and going back to our founders, our first year, there were 50 women. It started with 4 women on a couch or in a living room. They had a friend in Chicago that was part of a collective giving group in Chicago. They were intrigued by the idea and they said, do you think let's give it a go? And so then those 4 women managed to recruit 50 women. In that first year, Veronica Scott with the Empowerment Plan was the grant recipient. And I don't know if you're familiar with Veronica Scott and the Empowerment Plan, but she created a project when she was at the College of Creative Studies. She recognized that homelessness, there were 2 challenges. Number one, homelessness, that the homeless didn't have warmth in the winter, especially in Michigan, and that also there wasn't a path for employment for homeless, and particularly homeless with children. So mostly women, but some men that had families. And she had this incredible idea to take a coat and turn it into a sleeping bag. And in 2015, it was a little bit more than a college project. She had turned it into an organization, and she pitched to our women in addition to other finalists. And it's one woman, one vote. So the nonprofits, once they get to our finalist phase, they spend 5 minutes telling their project how our $100,000, or in this case $50,000, would impact their organization. And our women selected the Empowerment Plan. Veronica was part of a Women of Impact breakfast that we did virtually in the fall, and she said to us that was the largest amount of money that she received at that point, and it was as much as the money, it was a vote of confidence that there was a group of women who believed in what she did, saw what she did, and wanted her to continue to be successful. And I think I wasn't there, and I wasn't part of that 50, but I feel like that really put us in a point where our women, we tend to like organizations that, just what you mentioned, that smaller organization, that $300,000 to $5 million mark, where $100,000 is the domino that tips them, that makes them go to that next level. And when you look at our past 7 winners now, Empowerment Plan, Downtown Boxing Gym, Maggie's Wigs for Kids Michigan, Lawn Academy, Micah 6 Community, and then now Developing Kids, and also Freedom House Detroit, they're all in that model where they're incredible organizations doing amazing things. But $100,000 is organizational change for them. They're not grants that they receive regularly, maybe if ever, prior to our money coming in. And our women see that in their application, in the pitch, in the nonprofit leader, and that just tends to be what our women have voted and gravitated towards. We've certainly had organizations of a variety of size apply and get to the finalists, but it's how our women have voted and how they've felt compelled throughout the process, and that's been really cool.
Kerry Walsh with us here on the Megacast. She's the president for Impact100 Metro Detroit. Kerry, what's the last year been like for you and the women in the middle of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. our membership year is in a calendar. So women join, our membership is open until December 31st. We close it in January, and then our final number is revealed to our membership and to the community. And then that tells us how much we'll be giving out in that grant cycle. So we had just closed our membership, and we were staring down very aggressive goals for 2022. And when the lockdown happened, we all kind of looked at each other, and we knew we were finishing our grant cycle. We were at the point where we were at semifinalists for our what we call the big reveal when we give the money. But we all looked at each other and felt like, oh, we're missing community. And we very quickly pivoted to being virtual for everything. We did weekly coffees and conversations, where we were bringing in nonprofit leaders, we were bringing in mental health experts, we were talking about we were kind of in many ways one another's lifeline. And it wasn't just for members, it was open to all women. We had, I wish I could count how many virtual events, probably more than 20 virtual events over the year. And we interacted with over 1,000 women and men, but mostly women, in the community, providing just resources and information about how they could be involved, what nonprofits needed, what we needed for one another. And I think because of that, it really helped us have that, what you mentioned before, that sense of community. It was really hard. It's been hard for all of us. It continues to be hard for all of us. But in the way in that, never miss a waste a crisis kind of a moment, what we also learned was we were able to connect with women just even outside of Michigan, and we could help women connect with one another. There are friendships I have formed that I either just met them 2 weeks ago at our first in-person something, or I still have yet to meet them. And I really feel like I know these women because I've worked so closely with them over the past year. And I think all of us with work and many of us with our families, we were just looking for more and for a way to really feel like we were being a positive influence in our community. And Impact100, pre-pandemic and definitely during and post-pandemic, has provided that outlet for many of us. Really, it was a lifeline for me over the past year, without a doubt.
So with that, looking forward into the summer and what we hope to be a post-pandemic summer, what are your goals for the summer?
So we are starting to do some in-person activities, some social activities, some volunteering experiences. We want to get out to many of our grant recipients and see what they've been doing. One of our grant recipients from last year was Micah 6 Community, and the money, the $100,000 grant, funded them the ability for them to grow their garden, specifically to create a hoop house and additional garden space, which they believe will more than be 4 times the amount of food that they'll be able to provide this year, which of course they're very volunteer driven, so they're going to need a lot of hands on deck. And so we're really excited to help them with that. Lawn Academy, which was one of our other winners from 2021, they are opening a second hub for students, and that is a space that the summer and the spring is a high time for them. So we hope to get out there and help the Lawn Academy and their students. And then we also are continuing. We've realized many of our women really want to continue virtual, so we have monthly coffee and conversations on the last Thursday of every month. On June 24th and July 27th, 26th, whatever those Thursdays are, I'm sorry, I don't know the dates off the top of my head, we'll be visiting with our grant recipients. So Kim Johnson with Developing Kids and Deb Drennan with Freedom House Detroit will be joining us so we can learn more about those organizations and about the Impact Grant as well as just their needs. And we're going to continue to have in the fall, we're going to be doing our Women of Impact breakfast in October, where we recognize and talk about issues important to women in the community. We are planning to have some other fun fall events, and then our membership closes on December 31st, so that we can get ready to have our nonprofits apply for grants for the next grant season. So. It feels like it's far away, but our goal is 350 members. We want to be able to give out 3 $100,000 grants and then 2 $25,000 grants in next winter or next spring. And this is the time when we need to be letting as many women know about us as we can.
So with that, how many members did you say right now?
Last year we just gave $252,000 in checks, so 252 women. We were so excited at our big give. We announced we were at 104 members. So we already know, no matter what, we're giving at least a $100,000 grant next year. But we tend to be the kind that really want to grow aggressively. So we're hoping to go from 252 to 350. And we can do it. We grew during the pandemic. We know we can grow outside of the pandemic as well, and especially now that we can all be together. And we're really looking for women who are part of groups just like what you described, that we can just let them know what we're doing. And if they feel called to be part of this, we offer scholarships for women where $1,000 isn't feasible for the year. We have many women who they join with a scholarship in the first year, and then they take advantage of pay over time in future years. We have many women who ask for scholarships every year. And our goal is to be as inclusive as possible and to make this be, if it's something that you feel is part of what you want to be part of, we want you to be part of us. And so our scholarships are funded through generosity of members who give more than their $1,000. And even though a woman might give more than $1,000, it's just one vote, which is so democratized giving is something that we really believe in. And we believe in that power that one woman, one vote, $100,000 into the grant is really what makes Impact 100 so special.
Kerry Walsh with us here, President for Impact100 Metro Detroit. Kelly, where can people find out more information?
Impact100metrodetroit.org. And then anyone's always welcome. We have emails, and you're always welcome to contact us directly as well. Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a brand new podcast that was just launched that will be coming out every few weeks, where we talk to local leaders in the nonprofit space.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you with us here on the show. We so appreciate your time, but also all the work that you and all of the members are doing to help our community and make us stronger. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate it.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation about giving and how the Fords have given so much here to our area, and the Ford House. New renovations going on over at the Ford House. What's that going to mean for the community? That's next here on the Megacast.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's a second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us. We have a great lineup for the second hour of the show, and we'll kick it off with Mark Heppner. He's the president and CEO for the Ford House, talking about giving and supporting our community. the Fords have done that here in Metro Detroit for decades, including the Ford House.
No, they truly have. It's an amazing story, and it's just been a real privilege to be part of this organization, but also the legacy of Edsel and Eleanor Ford and the family today.
So with that, for those that maybe aren't familiar with the Ford House, which I think pretty much everyone here in Metro Detroit is, you drive by and you're just in awe. And you think about it, it was built back in the 20s.
Yeah.
But with that, tell us more about the Ford House.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you again, Ronnie and Tyler, for having me. I really appreciate it. We always love to tell our story. And as you say, I think most people know about Ford House, at least heard about it, but I don't think, to be fair, most people really understand why it is significant to not only our community, but also our national identity. The Fords being a really iconic American family, and the fact that here in our own backyard, we have a national historic landmark, meaning that it has been deemed by the federal government to be nationally significant. And we know our local significance, but to have that national significance is equally important. But it really it was the historic estate of the family themselves, Edsel and Eleanor and their 4 children. So all the Ford family members that you may know of today in our community in the many generations, all come really from Edsel and Eleanor. And so this was the family home. And what I like to think oftentimes, it's really where the heart of the family was historically and still is connected today. And so we have maintained it after the death of Eleanor in 1976. From 1978, it's been open to the public, and it was her wishes in her will to ensure that it was preserved for the betterment of the community and for their enjoyment. And so it has obviously, like a lot of organizations, evolved over time. And today we have just entered into a real new era and a really exciting era for the organization.
So I know that a new visitor center has been in construction for quite some time. Is it complete?
So, and I have to smile with that because I have been here for that whole journey, and it has been a journey, not only just because of the complexity and the beauty and what took the quality of building materials that had to be secured for this project. It has, through COVID and, challenges with supplies and materials, it has been a journey and a challenge. But I am so happy to tell all our listeners that we have been open. We cut the ribbon about 2 weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago today. And so we did have a great ribbon ceremony and opened the buildings, both the new visitor center and the new administration building. And it has just been going like gangbusters since.
We're talking with Mark Heppner. He's the president and CEO for Ford House. Why have this addition built?
Yeah, it's a great question. For those who have known us and come in the past, you would come, you would experience what we call the historic core, where the historic landscape, the historic buildings are, which is really what we're all about. So it's a great question to ask, why do you need this? Why are you doing this? Well, one of the things is that we, and I would say we in the bigger scheme of nonprofits, museums nationally, we're really looking about our impact differently than in the past. Just being stewards is not enough. That is our charge, but it's that mission focus and we were very limited with our old activity center to be able to really engage the visitor, engage guests, nationally and internationally in really meaningful ways. We didn't have dedicated education spaces. We didn't have dedicated education classrooms, meeting spaces, areas to engage the community. So these buildings, especially the visitor center, Ronnie, was really designed with the visitor completely in mind. So not only do we have these wonderful exhibition galleries, including a community exhibition gallery where we can partner with community organizations to put forth exhibitions on their own, but additionally we have meeting space, we have rental space, we have activity space, classrooms, and also a destination restaurant, which is just a great amenity to have here in the community, as well as a new retail spot too. So it's just been wonderful how we can serve the community better and tell our story better.
So for those that may wonder, well, we have the Henry Ford Museum.
Yes.
Why do we need this as well?
Yeah, and I will tell you, and I have been here at Ford House for over 9.5 years, And I still have even family members that get confused about, oh, you work at the Henry Ford, or you work at, where have you, or Fairlane, which is the historic home of Henry and Clara in Dearborn. And it is confusing. And one is that going back to something you said way earlier is about the impact of this family. It was and still continues to be extremely giving, generous family, and doesn't really look for all the accolades and the name associations, but it is interesting because all of us are legacies of the generosity. But what makes truly, I would say, Ford House different is that, again, it is where the emotion, where the memories of the family were made. It is the center, it is the heart of the family. And even think about your own lives. You have your jobs, you have your interests, but where do you always come back? You come back home. That's where you sit at the dinner table or in the living room. You have those conversations, that you have those shared experiences, those bondings, and that all happened here at Ford House. And so we're able to humanize this family in a way that other organizations cannot.
And with that, Mark, too, you have to walk through that house and wonder if these walls could talk, the stories they could tell.
Part of this, and I really encourage people when you come to visit, part of this new building in the visitor center is a new permanent exhibition called the Ford Family Story. And to your point is that we haven't done the best job at telling the story of this family. And there are special moments, these precious moments, and through historic film, family film, photographs, objects, letters, documents, this new exhibition really tells a story in a way that you've never dreamed before. And to your point, the stories that we learned and about the fun and the excitement, as if those walls could talk. Well, they're talking a little bit more now.
So is the house itself still open to the public then?
So we did have to shut down when COVID, of course, hit us. And continues to be a challenge for all institutions. I'm very happy to say when we opened the buildings 2 weeks ago, we've also opened up the historic core and the historic buildings. And so the only difference, if you come today, right now we are only offering self-guided tours and experiences. And of course, we have safety of all our visitors and our staff in the forefront. So that allows people to kind of tour on their own, to be in their own nucleus or their own bubbles of people that they know, and gives a lot more flexibility in a safer environment. And people have responded extremely well that they've really enjoyed experiencing the estate this way.
So Mark, with that too, if I can ask, because it is a historic property, are you always concerned about, the wear and tear on the building itself? Plus, we're in the middle of COVID, and we know there's so much more cleaning going on, which, some of these products today aren't always the best things for some of our aging institutions.
Oh, it's another great question, Ronnie. It's one of the things our staff here really immediately out of the gate wanted to learn about cleaning products and ensuring that our number one, again, focus is preservation. And so we could do a lot of damage very quickly if we weren't thoughtful. And so all that research was done prior. And some of that is even talking to peers nationally about product development. And so we feel very good about how we've been able to protect the assets that we have, but also with just that wear and tear. Yes, we had to do a little bit of adjustments. We had to put up some roping. We had to put up plexiglass barriers to make things a little bit more safer and watch access, but truly also being sure that we do that without limiting or diminishing the experience. The other great asset we have, if folks have not been out here, we have 87 acres of beautiful landscape, gardens and grounds. We have a bird island that is just a wildlife sanctuary. This commitment that the family had to the natural built environment. So even if you don't feel comfortable going inside the house, you have acres to enjoy of the beautiful landscape.
With that, Mark, too, it's not only, a story about the family and the Ford family, but really it's, the story of the history of the architecture that is in the building and the furnishings as well.
And I think that's one of the reasons I love this estate, besides, that connection, legacy of the Ford family, but it is so diverse in how it can connect and be relevant to individuals who come to visit us. It may be architecture, it may be the beauty of design, inside, outside, landscape architecture, also sustainability in the, like I said, the natural built environment. You have just, it abounds with beauty all around you. You may be interested in automotive history, local heritage, but also national heritage. And so really checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. And that's why we have a lot of repeat visitors, and there's always something to be seen.
Just think about all the people here in Metro Detroit that helped build that property as well, because like you said, it's the craftsmanship that goes into it.
Yeah, when you come and see the architectural beauty of this estate, you know, designed and really envisioned by Albert Kahn, and it's one of his, I think really is one of his most iconic residential commissions that he had, but also Jens Jensen, who was a landscape architect, a Danish immigrant here to the United States, and became extremely well known throughout the country for his development of using native plant materials and local plant materials to develop these extremely thoughtful, but not coming across as very well or heavily designed landscapes. And so this beautiful marriage that he was able to do here.
And you think about this was in the 20s, before computers.
When you look at the drawings that we have in our archives, and to your point, they themselves are works of art. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not that creative. When I see the beauty that they were able to put on paper and have an idea come to fruition and then be in the field and actually have that be produced, I don't get it, but I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Mark Heppner here with us on the Megacast. He's the president and CEO for Ford House. And with that, Mark, what are the hours? Do you guys have reduced hours, or are you pretty much back open right now?
Yeah, we've reduced a little bit. We are now open Tuesday through Sunday, so that is fantastic. Our restaurant and the visitor center and the exhibits, you can come just to visit the visitor center or the restaurant or retail, and that's again Tuesday through Sunday, and tours are also Tuesday through Sunday on self-guided. We do encourage people to make reservations prior, because especially with both the restaurant with COVID capacity and the tours with COVID capacity, you know, we're managing that, and we're finding that the demand is high, and we want to make sure that we can accommodate everybody. So I strongly encourage anybody who might be interested to come to visit us to check our website at fordhouse.org, and there you'll find everything updated consistently. We will continue to watch COVID and the local and federal guidelines and restrictions, and be very nimble to switch to accommodate as we can.
So Mark, with that, now that you have the visitor center behind you, what's the next project?
Well, you know, going back to that really important part of our existence is that stewardship and preservation of this landscape. I'm really excited. And I'm glad you asked, because not too many people know this, but we, at the same time of doing all this heavy lifting with these new buildings, we also embarked on our largest preservation restoration project in the history of the organization, which is the restoration of the lagoon and swimming pool area here on the estate. And it's a massive project, and that is probably about midway through. And by the end of this year and beginning of next year, it'll be completed, and it will be open for all visitors to really see amazing restoration work and to take back the landscape back to the way it was designed and enjoyed by the family.
I think about that, but we're also emerging from the pandemic, but you know, there are so many supply chain issues with the pandemic, which I'm sure has impacted you and your team as well, but also on the employee side as well.
You know, I was just talking to somebody the other day about even the construction project. What was amazing even during all that, we had honestly very little delays. Now, we had some issues at one point with some supplies, steel and some others, that caused some delays. But from personnel and from the tradespeople, it really wasn't an issue, knock on wood. And as we are going into this major restoration project on the landscape, so far, it has not impacted us too much. But now that I said this to you, I am sure I'm going to get a call later today that we've had issues.
I'll knock on wood for you. How's that? Hey, Mark, can I ask you, because this is like a 30,000 square foot home, and a lot of it's not open to the public. Have you been able to wander through and see all of the rooms?
I have, and I will tell you, one of the main reasons too for building a new administration building is to relocate all our staff from those historic buildings, especially the main house, with the sole purpose of being able to restore them and open them to the public. So even you can come and start seeing behind the scenes in some of those really interesting spaces. I have seen, I believe, every space, but I probably will guarantee there's some nook and cranny that I have not.
What's the one that you've been most excited to explore and to see?
You know, there's a couple spaces that I just find intriguing. I love the formal spaces, the living spaces, but I also love the mechanical spaces and the things that, again, that maybe not everybody wants to see a boiler room or a powerhouse in the basement, but to see that old equipment and to understand mechanically how these things were designed. And, you know, we now have these really energy efficient, you know, furnaces, and you just flip a switch, or you don't even flip a switch, it just automatically works. And to know that you had to have employees and staff that had to understand these, fix them on the, you know, and it's just amazing to see that technology, that early technology in a place like this. So I always get intrigued by those behind the scenes things.
Any secret passageways?
No, but there is an interesting tunnel that leads between the powerhouse and the main house under the ground. And you would never know that as a visitor from the exterior, but it's a pretty, I will say this, we all have seen the movie with Jack Nicholson, The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it can be dark down there, and I won't say I have seen twins at the end of the hallway, but it gives me the kind of the hair-raising feeling every time I walk down that corridor.
You don't want to go around Halloween time, huh?
No, not at all.
Mark Heppner with us here on the Megacast, President and CEO for the Ford House. Great to have you on again, and we're so excited that it's back open. Everyone, please do yourself, and it's great to take kids as well, and for them to be able, it's a marvel.
You know, and these buildings are physical changes in our history, but I think the most important thing, Ronnie, is the cultural changes occurring here. It is a complete reimagination of who we are and what we do and how we do it. And to your point, our focus on family and our community, and looking at our community in a much broader and much more diverse, inclusive way. I will tell you, if you come, you will not be disappointed.
Well, we so appreciate your time. And again, you can get more information through their social media or online as well. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll have the head coach of esports over at Oakland University with us. That's next here on the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
Thank you for being with us on the Megacast. As a reminder, you can always catch previous episodes of the show. Just go to our website, civiccentertv.com, click on Megacast, or you can just click the on demand if you only have time to watch a particular interview. One thing that has not slowed down in the middle of the pandemic, the team over at Oakland University, the esports team, they are rocking it. With us now, let's bring in the coach, Leone. Great to have you with us again. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing fantastic.
I will say I still find this such a fascinating world. I'm old school, but do you have that conversation with parents a lot?
Very often. More than I can count, I talk about it. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday where I was sitting with a group of people and kind of explaining esports to them, and they were telling me, why do people watch people play esports? Why do people watch people play games, really? And I said, well, you watch people play football and you're not playing football yourself. Why is that enjoyable? It's kind of the same thing, just for a newer generation.
That is a great analogy, by the way. That's something we could all wrap our minds around.
Yeah, I think it helps. A lot of the times when I talk to parents who really don't understand gaming that much, which I totally understand, a lot of the times it helps just to do sports references, because there really are a lot of similarities there, and it really helps them really understand where the players are coming from.
Because with that as well, you are a team and you train just like a sports team as well.
Yeah, we fall, at least us here at Oakland University, we fall under the athletics program. We practice multiple times a week. We compete every week. We practice how we play, and we also take a lot of other serious things into consideration, like life balance, mental health, physical health, nutrition, obviously diet and exercise programs as well. So it's not something that we take lightly, and we really do consider it a sport.
So with that, I have been hearing more and more colleges and universities are starting to add esports teams. Do you think this is only going to continue to grow in popularity?
Absolutely. The growth has been tremendous. And to throw numbers out there, 2014 was the first school in the U.S. to give out scholarships for gaming. So that was just one school in 2014. Now there's over 200. So you can see the growth is just absolutely massive over the last few years. Now we're seeing a lot of high schools and middle schools even start esports clubs or programs at their own university or own schools. And we've reached out to the community to try and help with those efforts too. But we're seeing growth in college, in high school, in the professional scene. So I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Of course, like anything, there's got to be a plateau at some point, but I don't think we're at that point.
So before we jump into the season that you and your team members had, at the end of the day, this is more than just a sport. It's also helping train some of the students for a career. So what are some of the career options and pathways if someone is into esports?
There are so many career paths. It's really difficult. There's actually an amazing infographic out there that lists all of the ones that somebody was able to think of, 80 plus. But if you think about it this way, if you think about ESPN or NFL, there's so many jobs that go along with putting on that kind of a professional level broadcast. And the professional esports scene has something that mirrors that very well to a really professional degree. So you have the play-by-play analyst, you have coaches, head coaches for the teams, you have nutritionists for the teams, you have sports psychologists for the teams, you have team managers, you have lead directors, you have referees for the game. So all of these different aspects that you have to be able to supply as far as employees feed the industry. And so for people who are interested in esports, it's not necessarily that you have to be the top 1%. You don't have to be amazing at these games to live the dream of being employed in the esports industry. There's a lot of different avenues to go after. So we at Oakland University, we really try and promote that and help out students who aren't even in our varsity program. We've opened up a lot of doors for them to get internship opportunities in the esports industry.
So one of the things that's really helped spur the popularity of esports is when you can pack a stadium with some of the competitions that didn't happen over the past year because of COVID. So what is that side of esports looking like right now? Are people ready to get back into competition?
Absolutely. And with vaccines coming out, and I think over 50% of the U.S. adult population is now vaccinated, we're starting to get closer and closer to that point of normalcy, right, before COVID hit us, and maybe we'll be able to do these in-person events. In fact, we booked our first in-person event that we're going to travel to for next fall. We already booked it. So we're really optimistic about it. And the esports, ecosystem is very optimistic and really excited about getting back into person, because it might seem like you can play games online virtually and it's not a problem. But the best part about esports is getting in a packed stadium with thousands of people and all have the same interest. It's just amazing. So I'm excited for that to travel as a coach. But I know the players are excited about that. And people are ready to be spectators for these events too.
Because it is a community. It really is a community. We're talking with Carl Leone. He's the esports head coach over at Oakland University. Your team had a good year. Despite a pandemic, don't let COVID slow you down.
Yeah, no kidding. What an interesting time to start up the program. We announced it in December, and then in March, COVID hit, and March was when I was hired. So it's a really odd time to start a program, but we were able to plow through it, I think, very successfully. I mean, on a lot of different metrics, I think we just blew it out of the water this year, and we're hoping to keep that bar and exceed it for next year. But yeah, our Smash team was ranked top 10 in the country. League of Legends team was top 36 in the country, and our Rocket League team was top 50 in the country. So, out of about 400 teams compete in each of those titles around the nation. So we're in that top 10%, top 5% in our first year. Really incredible, and I'm not taking praise for myself. It's our student athletes that have done it for us.
Yeah, but we should mention again, it's in the middle of the pandemic, the very first year. So are you looking ahead to next year? Like, how do I top this? Are you a little nervous?
Of course, there's a little bit of nerves, but we were able to retain a lot of our players because they're younger players. So I think we have the same level of talent, if not even better, coming in for next year. We're also kind of doubling up the resources that we have. For example, doubling up the roster size. So I'm actually recruiting 14 new student athletes for next year, and we're adding a new title. So we're adding Overwatch for next year. So we're really excited to compete in that game as well. So maybe that's a way that we can raise the bar even higher, is get nationally ranked in 4 games.
So when you have a year like you just had, does that help you in recruiting? And when we're talking about recruiting, it's the same thing as like we're thinking, when it comes to recruiting for the baseball team or the football team or the golf team, you're looking for the best players.
Absolutely. Our program, our players rank around the top 1% of players nationally, so 99th percentile. That includes the professional players. So you can imagine these players are really talented. It's very difficult to find them because there's not that many out there. So we put a lot of resources into recruiting the right students and finding them. For our process, like you said, it's similar to traditional sports. We have esports combines that high school players will actually compete in and kind of show off for college scouts. We compete in a lot of those. There's also student directories that we look into, and we do a lot of social media marketing, pushing out our content, making sure people know about our program in the first place so that they can apply to it,
So this really is such a groundbreaking arena, and for all the parents who are constantly complaining to their kids, put down the video game, go outside and play, they could have the next superstar, because some of the students are kids, really like 11, 12, 13, some of them are raking in major money by playing these games online.
Yeah, so I always reference League of Legends just because it's the most popular esport out there. But the professional players there, their salaries range from, $300,000 is about the average, I believe, and then it goes up to 7 figures for many players in League of Legends. And then as far as, they have marketing opportunities outside of that, so it's not just that. But again, like any other sport, we're talking about that top 0.05% of players. So what happens to the rest of them, who are aspiring players but don't make it? Well, there's a whole esports industry to get them excited about their job and their profession. So I think that that's important. And, for talking to the parents, I always advocate for balance. I'm not someone, even though I'm an esports director, I do not advocate for 10, 12-hour days of gaming at home. That's not healthy. It wouldn't be healthy for football. You can imagine your body would be wrecked. It's the same thing for esports. It's just not good. So if you want to really promote it and maybe craft your child into an esports prodigy, shorter goal-oriented practices are much better than long, drawn-out practices with really no goal. So 2-3 hours a day is a good way to do it, but literally notes beforehand and after about what you're trying to work on, what you're trying to improve on, and then if you did after, and what are the next steps.
With that, Carl Leone with us here on the Megacast. He's the esports head coach over at Oakland University. What do most of your student athletes major in, or is it all over?
A lot of STEM fields. You see a lot of them. I'll say probably the most often it's computer science. I think that falls hand in hand with gaming, but it's really all over the place. Yeah.
They're the smart kids.
Absolutely.
So what do you think the future of this field is going to be? Is this really the ground level? It's just going to continue to grow?
Yeah, if you want to quote me on it, I would say in 5 years, college esports looks more like an athletic department than one sport. So you would have someone like an esports director and then a head coach for each of the sports that you'd be competing in, because that's a real honest way to look at it, is that we compete in League of Legends, Rocket League, Smash Brothers, now Overwatch. That's 4 different sports. You know, you're not going to find a coach who is able to coach football, soccer, and baseball to the same level. So I think 5 years, you're going to find director of esports, head coach for each, and then maybe 1 or 2 assistant directors in there for every program.
So for us that maybe aren't familiar with some of these games, is it just those leagues, those games, or do you anticipate more games are going to come in?
So those are the titles that we compete at Oakland University. There's a lot of other ones out there. Those are the most popular. I think if it were to be ranked, it'd be League of Legends first, Rocket League second, Overwatch third, and then Smash Brothers would be number 5 in there. But other popular titles in college esports would be like Fortnite or Call of Duty, CSGO, Valorant. Those would be other really big popular titles. We just chose not to compete in those for one reason or another. But I could honestly, over years, if we're talking, there's certainly some of those games that will fall out of favor and will be dumped by college esports programs, and those students will have to transfer. That's an interesting, situation to be in. Thankfully, we've not had to be in that yet for year 1. And there's going to be new games introduced to replace them too.
With that, if I'm a high school student and I'm thinking this is the arena I want to go, what advice do you give to them?
If they're looking for a scholarship, I'd train specifically on your skill set in the game to try and rank up. If you're within the top 1% of ranked players, maybe top 5% of ranked players, then you've already kind of achieved the status of the rank, and now it's more about marketing yourself, making sure you get in contact with college recruiters such as myself or other esports directories. There's a great website out there called lfgroup.gg, I believe. And that website is great for finding esports programs out there that offer scholarships and trying to get a scholarship for it.
So, Carl, if I can ask you, because I'm just wondering, some students don't even have a computer. We found that out throughout COVID. So, how does someone even get into this if they're sitting at home with their cell phone? It feels like there's not a lot of diversity, because it's not only just having a computer, because you're not playing on your Chromebook, but you have to have a good computer as well, and those can get a bit pricey.
Yeah, definitely. What I would suggest, if you're in a situation like that, it's definitely difficult. It's not something where it's an inexpensive sport. Like you could reference soccer would be very easy to pick up, and play. What I would say is focus on titles that don't require a computer that's that high tech. So specifically League of Legends, it's always joked about that it could be run on a toaster. It might be more difficult, but you can play the game for sure on a game like that. So practicing that title, if you're looking specifically to become a professional player or to get a scholarship, an esports program, I would focus on games that are a little bit more low tech and easier to get into. But you will need a computer in some capacity. You may be able to work out a deal with a local library. Maybe they'll let you sit there and play. I'm not sure. There's also some PC cafes, is what I would call them, but you can rent a computer at the cafe for hours at a time, although those can be a little bit more expensive. And to me, it's more economical to try and save up for the computer than to rent one.
Go out, mow some lawns, save up the money, get a good computer, and you could be making a few $100,000 by the time you're 2021.
Yeah, just have to think of it as an investment, right? An investment in your own future in that way.
Well, and the same as sports, parents don't think twice about getting a baseball coach or a football coach, so that could be another revenue stream as well, be a coach.
Yeah, I think over time we'll find that the traditional sports, the avenue to get into college or professional play is going to be mirrored by esports. It just hasn't gotten there yet. We're really in the infancy stage here.
Carl Leone with us again on the Megacast. He's the esports head coach over at Oakland University. Thank you for your time and congratulations again on your first year. We're excited to see what year 2 brings you.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to coming back on.
Congratulations to your team as well. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll stay over at Oakland University and talk to our good friend, Professor Dulio. That's next here on the Megacast.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Welcome back to the Thursday edition of the Megacast. I will say when it comes to politics, it seems like things are calming down just a little bit, Tyler, or?
It depends what you mean by calm, Ronnie.
Well, let's just say we don't want a repeat of January anytime soon.
No.
But to talk a little bit more, let's bring in our good friend, Professor Dave Dulio over at the Oakland University, Professor of Political Science and the Director for the Center for Civic Engagement. Great to have you back with us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I guess we should start off with the governor. There was a new poll out this week. She's taking a bit of a dip in her approval ratings. No surprise, though, with the controversies that have been following her. They've been stacking up.
No, I think a dip in approval ratings is one of the most expected things we could see in a new poll here in Michigan statewide in the last couple of months. As you note, the controversies, the criticism has been almost a drip, drip, drip. And it's, the governor's staff and her handling of it, surprisingly, have turned maybe a 1 or 2 day story into a couple of week story, and something that we're still talking about.
I will say when it comes to the plane and the whole debacle going to Florida, just say you went. No big deal. Just say you went.
Right. And I think a lot, if not most, Michiganders would have looked at that and said, okay, I understand that your dad is sick, you wanted to see him, you had to do this. I think people would be forgiving of that if somebody's upfront about it. But when you try to sneak around, the old adage, the cover-up's worse than the crime, comes back. And I think that it's unquestionably worse now than if the governor would just have been upfront about it. At the same time, maybe this is a little different scenario simply because, even if she would have said and been completely transparent about it, people still probably would have looked at it and said, well, how come you can go, but I can't?
Well, definitely. But I think, too, it's like you said, it's the secrecy behind everything, too. Who was on the plane? Who wasn't on the plane? Oh, the nonprofit's going to pay for it. Well, nonprofit can't pay for it, so they're getting in trouble. And then the owners of the plane were getting in trouble because it's like, well, maybe, no, it wasn't a charter plane. We can't charter it. So it was just every turn there was something.
Right, and that's the drip, 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 right? That turned that it's not a minor story, but it turned like I said, a 1 or 2 day story into something that keeps bubbling up, and it's going to for the next 18 months or so until we have election day, and it's going to be front and center, I would imagine, from whoever emerges from the Republican primary to challenge her, and without doubt from third-party groups that are going to play an important role in that governor's race.
So speaking of the GOP, I think so many people were taken by surprise with the announcement Detroit Police Chief James Craig may run against Whitmer. I think that would be a pretty interesting matchup. He has a shot.
Oh, I don't think there's any question, and the polling that's been out already that shows a one-on-one matchup with Governor Whitmer and Chief Craig certainly have him within striking distance. And the first one that came out, I think, is notable because it had the governor at 48 and Craig at 42. And I say that that's important for at least two reasons. One, the governor's under 50%. And under 50% against somebody who is new to politics, and this would fold in with the other piece, Craig at 42. We know him very well here in Southeast Michigan as Detroit's chief of police, but I would wonder what his name recognition is on the west side of the state, and certainly up north. If he's at 42 already, without much, I presume, without a ton of name recognition in those heavily Republican areas, he's positioned very, very well for a run at the governor's mansion.
So with that, too, we had the big news this week. Kwame Kilpatrick is staying in Detroit. He says he's not going to be dipping his toes back into politics. Instead, he's going into ministry. I know Kwame. He's going to get involved in politics.
Well, simply saying he's not going to be in politics means he's in politics, right? I mean, it's real simple. And I think that he will absolutely be looked to, and he will be part of the swirl that is politics here in the Southeast Michigan region and across the state.
But is he going to be a part of the swirl on the Democratic side or the Republican side? Because you have to remember, he has a relationship with Trump. And so how is that going to play into, any future?
Such a great question, right? Because there's that uncertainty, but then you pile that on top of the uncertainty around the role that former President Trump may or will have in the 2022 election cycle, and it just becomes an even bigger swirl, almost sort of a tornado of activity here that we don't know how it's going to turn out. And it's a big if, right? If James Craig emerges from a Republican primary in the governor's race, and I say it's a big if because there are others who are going to vie for that, who are going to pick up on some political dynamics that are at work in our state. Like I said, he's positioned very well, but it's far from a guarantee that he emerges from that primary. But if he does he campaign with the president? Does he ask the president to come? What is that relationship? What is that dynamic like?
That really is setting up the state of Michigan to be such a key player in this upcoming election as well. And I'm wondering too, because you have people, Peter Meyer, he's a freshman, but still he is someone to contend with, and people are listening to him. And one thing he's been doing is speaking out about the conservatives. Is that going to hurt or help the Republican Party?
Well, I think the status of the GOP right now is one of flux and one of a battle, right? I mean, it's really this sort of internal civil war among the Republicans to figure out what the direction of the party is going to be. And as you know, right, on one side, you've got folks like Peter Meyer, who have called folks to the carpet, but on the other side, you've got folks in leadership in the for instance, the U.S. House of Representatives, when somebody like Representative Cheney comes out and makes similar statements, makes similar pronouncements, she gets stripped of her leadership position. And that's really interesting to me, because the person who took her place, Representative Stefanik, was actually less of a supporter of the Trump agenda in the U.S. House than Representative Cheney was. So it's interesting how things shift and change and perspectives differ as other developments occur. So, but to get back to where we started this, there really is that going to continue to be that battle between sort of the I don't want to say moderate, but maybe the more establishment, traditional Republican wing of the party and the Trump wing of the party. And I'm not sure we're going to know who wins that until we see the results of the 2022 cycle.
It really is like sitting back and watching a sport. Politics is a dirty game.
Well, it's rough and tumble, that's for sure, right? I mean, it's dog eat dog. All those goofy cliches are true, right? It's knock down, drag out for sure. And we've seen that. It seems like we see it every election cycle here in Michigan, whether it's a campaign, certainly at the presidential level last time, or the John James, Gary Peters race last time, or the John James, Debbie Stabenow race 2 years before that, right? And we're going to see some of those races again in 2022.
With that as well, if we can talk about President Biden, I think he's going to have a hard time with his restructuring plan with the transportation, because he can't even get the country to 70% vaccination rate, which has been such a cornerstone of his messaging from day one of taking office.
Sure, and one of the difficulties with setting a goal like that is that your opponents know what it is, and if you fall short of it, which it appears that we're going to on that by the 4th of July, that they can take political advantage of it, and that's going to continue to be the case. I think that the president is going to hit a rough patch here. Not that it's been totally smooth sailing thus far, but I think he's going to hit a rough patch. Who knows where this infrastructure debate's going to go? It doesn't look like he's got the votes, even from within his own party, to pass the Democrats' big initiative on election reform, right? So if Democrats can't even keep their own folks on board, how are they going to get Republicans to come and join in the U.S. Senate to reach that 60-vote threshold that they need to under the current rules?
And talking about election reform as we head into another election cycle season here in the state of Michigan, it's still a big controversy. Do the laws and rules and regulations around how we vote need to be changed?
Oh, I think that depends who you ask. Right, and maybe I'll say it this way. I think a lot of people in Michigan would say yes, but their definition of what needs to be changed and how it changes would be dramatically different depending on who you talk to.
So with that, as you're going into a new season of teaching these young minds about the wonderful political process here in the United States of America, are they excited? Does the controversy really spark a debate amongst some of your students?
I think it piques their interest. And I think that you see that in our enrollments in courses like Introduction to American Politics, which is it's the big survey course. Our enrollments have always been good in that class, but they've been stronger in recent years. And I think controversy, like, it's a similar dynamic that's maybe in the press, right? Where sensational stories get attention. Well, when we have the kind of politics we've been having for the last several years, I think that gets attention as well. And young people say to themselves, hey, maybe I should know a little bit more about that.
Dave Giulio with us here on the Megacast. He's the professor of political science and the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University. With that, though, I feel like the students have a harder time now because there's so much noise on the internet. How do you guide them to, really take the time to do some homework to, understand what they're reading to try to get legitimate facts out of the information?
Sure. I think one of the big lessons that it's for students and for anybody in the public, really, any consumer of media, including you and me, would be to know the sources that you're turning to and know what their biases are, right? Everybody's got bias. I think there's no question about that. And even news sources lean one way or the other. There are some good tools out there to help folks figure out which news source leans which way. I mean, some we can point to and say, yep, that's a lefty news source, or that's a conservative news source. There's an organization out there that does really good work. It's called All Sides. And they've got a rating of different news organizations to let folks know sort of which way each one of them leans. And if consumers of information are armed with that knowledge, they can say, okay, I read this piece on this site and it leans left. Maybe I'll go try to find a similar story from a place that leans to the right, and try to triangulate and figure out, okay, I've heard from both sides. The truth's probably in the middle.
It's really sad that we have to operate like that because, the role of the journalist is to be the watchdog for the community, and that's not happening. I think a perfect study is just to look at the immigration issue right now, how it was portrayed and relayed through the news media under Trump and now under Biden. It really is fascinating to watch that play out.
No doubt about it. And I think the one of the biggest issues that we confront with news media, with consuming information, is the blurring of the line between reporting and opinion. And that's not me saying this. And I'm going to cite a study from the Rand Corporation that was done a few years back. It's called Truth Decay. A pretty catchy little title, right? Truth Decay, and they had 4 big pillars of sort of what's wrong with the press these days, and that was one of them. That there's too much blurring of a line between factual reporting and opinion, because and I think that's where, if you're going to get biased, that's where it's going to seep in.
We're talking with Dave Dulio here on the Megacast from Oakland University, and with that, we always like to check in with you for the center. Anything going on, or are you guys taking the summer off?
We're taking a bit of a hiatus over the summer, and it's really because when we've got such great summer weather in Michigan, not as many people are interested in tuning into a Zoom meeting on politics right over on a nice Michigan summer night. So we'll come back in the fall with a lot of great programs. And I hope you'll have me back to talk about those details.
So with that too, are you teaching back in person right now?
We will be in the fall. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Are looking forward to it, or do you kind of like Zoom?
No, I'm Zoomed out. Enough's enough.
I think we all are. And I've never even, before the pandemic, I never understood the students that would take online classes, because to me, it's that debate. When you're in a classroom, it's the debate and the conversation. It's not about the actual lesson. You can read a book on your own, but it really is trying to have those conversations that are so important in a classroom.
Yeah, the interaction that is missed is, it makes it, I'll just say it, it's an inferior way of doing things, especially in the kind of courses that we do in the poli-sci department.
So with that, too, if I can ask you just another minute or two here with you on the Megacast, do you feel like the students will be excited? And is it a safe place for them? Because now I feel like so many people feel like they can't say anything because you're going to offend someone. And we've seen careers sidelined over what could be somewhat of an innocent statement.
Well, I can't control what's going to offend somebody else, right? So then let me make sure I'm going to answer your question correctly. Are you talking about how I approach things in the classroom, or how other students would interacting with their peers?
The students interacting with their peers.
I think what I do in those situations is just set the ground rules, right? And say, look, if we're going to have this discussion, this is how it's going to go.
Be nice, be kind, but debate an issue.
Right. And you know what? Just because somebody has a different opinion than you do doesn't make them the devil.
That is so true. And we know that, right? I mean, Stephen Henderson, Nolan Finley, they're great examples of that. I always say, too, Professor, by the way, you can't offend me, because then that means that your opinion matters more than my opinion of myself. So talk away. Go ahead.
Great way to look at it. Yeah, great way to look at it.
You know, I've been called more things on the internet than you could imagine. It's okay. Go ahead. It says more about who you are as a person, than what it says about me. That's my rant for the day. Professor Dulio with us. We appreciate your time as always. Have a great summer. Any big plans?
Oh, you know, a little bit here and there, vacations with the family. Sticking around town a lot, though. Playing a lot of golf at the great OU golf courses.
Oh, golf. My husband, by the way, he has to play on Monday to practice for Tuesday. And then, of course, you've got to practice at least a couple other days to practice for that Tuesday league as well.
Right. Makes sense.
Well, I hope your game improves over the summer.
Thank you. So do I.
Dave Dulio with us here at the Megacast. He's been such a great friend to us throughout the past year, because we have to remember, not only have we been dealing with the pandemic, we've also been dealing with a crazy election year as well in the middle of it. So it's been great to have his perspective and expertise to help navigate this crazy time. So with that, get out, enjoy the weather today. The mugging machine is back on, but it's still going to be sunny and nice here in Metro Detroit. So stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you back here tomorrow bright and early, 10 a.m. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.